Hello and welcome Kasturians to the concluding video of chapter 6, that is Bhakti Sufi traditions. In this video we will discuss the teachings of Kabir, Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Mirabai. So let's start. In the last videos we have seen the Sufis and the Chishtis. We have seen the Dargah of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, that is Garib Nawaz. So in this video we will see that is the languages and communication which were used by the Chishtis. The poems composed by Chishtis, they were in several languages, and they especially used Hindvi, means they adopted vernacular languages and created or carved out a simple language in which the Arabic words as well as the Hindu words they were involved, and that is what Hindvi is. The Chishtis, they used Hindvi, which or Persian language. Sufis such as Baba Farid, they composed poetry in local languages, and the Sufis, they composed long poems or masnavis to express idea of divine love using human love as an allegory. The Sufi poetry, it was composed in Dakhani language around Bijapur and Karnataka region, and the women, they were performing household chores like grinding grains and spinning. They used to sing these poems while doing these domestic chores, and other poems were also written, but they were written in the form of Lorinama, that is lullabies, or wedding songs, that is Shadinama. The Sufis of this region, they were inspired by the Kannada Vachanas of the Lingayats and the Marathi Abhangs of the sons of Pandharpur. The Sufis, they were having good relations with the state, and the Chishti tradition, it was austere, but it didn't isolated political power. They accepted unsolicited grants and donations from the political nobles or kings, that is the elite class. The sultans, they set up a charitable trust, that is Awqaf, which used to give endowment for hospices, and they granted tax free land which were known as Inam. The Chishtis, they accepted the donations in cash or in kind, in whatever form it was, and used the same for their immediate requirements like arranging food, clothes, living quarters, and ritual necessities like Sama. The moral high status of the Sufis, it attracted people from all walks of life, and the kings, they used to secure the support of the Sufi, and that's how, since Sufis, they were having common people as their followers, and that too in large number, that ensured that king has got the support of the common man if he got the wish or ashirvad or dua from the Sufi. The kings, they simply did not need to show their association with the Sufis, but they also required to legitimate with them, because the this way they could have the local support of the people. And when the Turks, they set up the Delhi Sultanate, Sufis, they resisted the insistence of the ulema on imposing Sharia as the state law. Why? Because the Muslims, they knew that this will anticipate opposition from their subjects, and the sultans, they also depended on the Sufis to interpret the Sharia, and it was believed that Aulia could intercede with God to improve the material and spiritual conditions of the people. And it is because of this that as a result the kings, they got shrines of the Sufis near built near their tombs, And the instances of conflict between the sultans and the Sufis are also found, but to assert their authority, both that is the sultan and the Sufis, they expected that certain rituals which were to be performed, they should be performed like kissing of the feet, etc. New devotional paths they were introduced in North India at the same time during the 14th and 15th centuries, and Kabir Das was one of the most outstanding examples of a poet saint. Verses which are ascribed to Kabir they have been compiled in three distinct traditions. Now, how we can reconstruct the life of Kabir? Basically, it is written or stated in the Kabir Bijak, which is preserved by the Kabir Panth, that is the sect who is the follower of Kabir Das ji. And this Kabir Panth is in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. The Kabir Granthavali is associated with the Dadu Panth in Rajasthan, and many of his compositions are found in the Adi Granth Sahib. These compilations they made after the death of Kabir, and they were made basically, and the poems they have survived in several languages and dialects, and sometimes with special languages of migration, with special language of Nirguna poets, and the Sant Bhasha, which was the language of the Nirgun poets, and others they were known as Ulat Bansi, that is upside down sayings. So these were the sources which helped us to reconstruct the life history of Kabir. Now we will see the teachings. Kabir he tried to describe the ultimate reality including Islam, that according to him ultimately reality was Allah, Khuda, Hazrat and Pir, and he also used certain Vedic terms like Brahman and Atman, that is Atma. Kabir also used some yogic traditional terms like Shabd or Shunya, that is sound and emptiness. And some of the poems of Kabir they express conflicting and diverse ideas, where we can see some poems they attacked Hindu polytheism and idol worship, and others used Sufi concept of zikr and ishq, that is love, to express the Hindu practice of Nam Simran, that is remembrance of God's name. The language, style, and content of these poems are continuously being tried by historians to analyze, and this is also a conflicting and debating issue, that whether Kabir was a Hindu or a Muslim by birth, and these matters are well reflected in the hagiographies. It was suggest the hagiography which was found in the Vaishnava tradition, it suggests that he was a Hindu born boy but brought up by a poor Muslim community of weavers. So this also suggests, these Vaishnava tradition hagiographies they suggest that he was initiated into bhakti by a guru Ramananda, and the poems of Kabir they used words like Guru and Satguru, but they do not mention the name of any specific Guru. And these uh, traditions, it is very difficult to establish whether Ramananda and Kabir they were contemporaries, or Wakai mein in that case in reality Ramananda was Guru of Kabir Das ji. Now we will see Baba Guru Nanak and the secret word. Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji he was born in a village called Nankana Sahib near Ravi in Punjab in 1469, and he was trained to become an accountant, and he studied Persian also. He got married at a younger age, but he spent most of his lifetime among Sufis and Bhakt. So he used to travel widely. When it comes to teaching, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings are well reflected in his hymns, and these hymns suggest that he was an advocate of a form of Nirguna Bhakti. He rejected sacrifices, ritual baths, image worship, and the scriptures of Hindus and Muslims. According to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the Absolute or the Rab had no gender or form. He proposed that a simple way to connect to the God is by remembering the God's name. Also, the ideas they were expressed through hymns called Shabad in Punjabi and the language of the region, and they were sang with different ragas. The followers of Guru Nanak Dev Ji they were organized into a community for which he set up the rules for congregational worship, that is Sangat, and he appointed one of his disciples, that is Guru Angad Dev Ji, to succeed him as the preceptor or Guru. Guru Nanak did not wanted to establish a new religion. That's why after his death, the followers they consolidated their own practices to form a distinct community. And the fifth Guru, that is Guru Arjun Dev, he compiled Guru Nanak's hymns along with those of his four successors and other religious poets like Baba Farid, Ravidas, and Kabir in the Adi Granth Sahib. These hymns were called Gurbani, that is Guru's Vani. They are composed in various languages. The 10th Guru of the Sikhs, that is Guru Gobind Singh, he included the compositions of 9th Guru, that is Guru Tegh Bahadur, and this Panth, which was basically an army of the pure people. These Panths came to be known as the Khalsa Panth, and he also defined the five symbols of the Khalsa Panth, that is Kesh, Kripan, Kachehra, Kangha, and Kada. When we see the scriptures, the scripture in which all these compilations of Guru Nanak Dev Ji they were recorded by his follower or disciple Guru Angad, and basically this uncut hair, a dagger, a pair of shorts, a comb, and a steel bangle, that is Kada. These were the five sacred symbols which were introduced. And it was the leadership of Guru Gobind Singh that the community became a socio-religious as well as a military force. Now, Mirabai, she is also known as the devotee princess. She was the best known woman poet within the Bhakti tradition, and she was basically a Rajput princess from Merta in Marwar, and she was married to the prince of Sisodia clan of Mewar, but this was against her wishes, so she defied her husband and she didn't submit to the traditional role of a wife and mother. She recognized Krishna, the avatar of Vishnu, and as her lover, she devoted herself to Lord Krishna. Her in-laws they tried to poison her, but she escaped and lived as wandering singer, composing songs with intense expression of emotion for the ultimate Lord, that is the incarnation of Bhagavan Vishnu, Lord Krishna. And Mirabai's most famous preceptor was Raidas, who was a leather worker. So this perception of having a follower or preceptor as Raidas, a leather worker, it defies the norms of caste and society. That is, apart from being a princess, she was overwhelmed with the way Raidas was working, and that's why she made Raidas her preceptor. So this was another example that Mirabai was against casteism. She had donned the white robes of a widow and or the saffron robe of the renouncer. Although she didn't attracted a sect or group of followers, but she was or she is recognized as a source of inspiration for centuries. And information about Mirabai we can get from the bhajans